Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Elliot Stackhouse. I'm the National Sales Manager for iMedicare. And thank you so much for joining this afternoon's webinar, looking at a deep dive into Efemia, into how it works, and also the scientific element as well. So this afternoon, what we're going to do is go through the slides here, just with an overview of how Efemia works. So about incontinence. So who is affected? So incontinence is thought to affect around about 1 in 5 women within the UK, and can be often down to 1 in 4, depending on the circumstances. What we know is incontinence affects a whole variety of different ages, whether that's the menopausal lady, perhaps over 50, or perhaps if patients have gone through childbirth or numerous children, that can have a significant impact on the pelvic floor. Now, what we know is incontinence can be incredibly shameful. It can provide anxiety. It can be incredibly depressing. It can affect sexual intercourse because of the embarrassment. And people feel too ashamed to perhaps maybe seek medical attention or perhaps go and see a physio in that constant. But what we are able to do with regards to things like this is promote a little bit of awareness of what the options are and provide a bit more guidance on where people can go and offer pelvic floor exercises through the relevant channels. So the studies and the design. Why does the Efemia Support look the way that it does? And what data do we have on its effectiveness? So it all started with a question with Efemia. And this has led to Efemia being produced and being extremely successful. Now, Efemia is based on the aspect of TVT, which was an extremely effective surgical option, but it's an invasive aspect which does need hospitalization for a surgical intervention. But what they wanted to do is design a product which offered a mid-urethral support, which avoided that surgical intervention. So it all came about when they looked at the mid-urethral theory, later known as the integral theory, where they were looking at the aspect of the vaginal wall and the influence of how it does affect sphincter control with opening and closing the sphincter. So they found that the urethra's middle third supports the bladder neck, and it means that it's a central role in maintaining continence. And the maximum continence closure zone is thought to be around about 1 to 1.5 centimeters down from the bladder neck. Now, what we are able to do is find a dynamic support, whether that's TVT or perhaps a pessary, which doesn't compromise blood flow or circulation, but an innovation route to allow for that continence management to be controlled. So looking at illustrations here, so the female anatomy as a cross-sectional approach is picture 1. And then on picture 2, we show the female anatomy under intra-abdominal pressure. Picture 3 shows abdominal pressure and also shows a weak and damaged pelvic floor, which you can see from the illustration has caused urethral funneling. And then picture 4 shows how effective Efemia is at supporting that weakness and stabilizing the urethra itself. So the design over the years. So as you can see from the illustrations on the bottom of this slide, the product has gone through 3 generations of development, really. So the first product itself was quite weighty and it was quite bulky, but that has been adapted with critical measures in place to keep it standardized. So we look at the neck is long enough to support the mid-urethra, and they all have the same width as TVT with the circular whips on this peripheral here. And the outer handle secures and supports the rings to the right height, sitting externally, but it allows that balancing. And that's why it's important. It's all about getting the right size to allow for that patient to be comfortable in wearing the product, but also to get that significant urinary leakage reduction. So if we look at these 2 extremes here, so we see on the left the first product, the first generation, which was a little bit bulky, but it had the rounded top. This is the slimmest variant. Whereas what they found with the slimmest variant, it was a little bit too flimsy, but the element of the design is still relatively the same. With the banding element is similar to TBT in the width, but the length is a big consideration because we know that the urethra is around about sort of 3 to 5 centimeters long. So as long as we can sit it on the mid-urethra, then we are getting that standardization in the treatment and use. So the design and the development of the new and current option is that we offer 3 different sizes in the starter kit. Now, the 30 ml, the 35 ml, and the 40 offer a great opportunity for patients to mix and match depending on their sporting activity or perhaps how they find the fitting of the device. So we always recommend that patients start off utilizing a 30 ml. And if that isn't having the continence management that they wanted, to then move it up to 35 and then 40. But it's important that the size isn't too small, because if the size is too small, it might move around and then chafe a little bit on the labia or perhaps towards the perineum, depending where the handle is. But we always recommend utilizing a water-based lubricant, whether that's SWB or KY jelly, just to allow for that insertion and to make sure it's much more comfortable. But if the size is too big, then it might become a little bit uncomfortable when they are moving around. But the correct size should be comfortable and it should be easy to use. Now, patients can wear this for 16 hours a day, and it's reusable for 3 months. The product might last longer as well if they are just utilizing it intermittently for exercise principles, maybe twice a week. So the design and the development. So what we do have is we have a nice comprehensive overview. So we know that the class is classified as a medical device, which is a class 2B. It's comprised of 100% medically graded silicone. It's soft and it's flexible design. It's safe. There's no plastics and there's no harmful substances in the product. It's incredibly durable. The handle itself will actually hold, can actually withstand a weight of 7 kilos. And it's developed by Invent Medic in Sweden, and it's also manufactured in Europe. The product has a 4-year shelf life, and it is reusable for that 3-month period. So Efemia within the study data itself. So the first study, the TVS 1000, was the main clinical study which allowed for the product to gain a CE mark. And it looked at 97 women over the age of 50. And the quality of life studies are typically the 2000 and the 3000, whereas the activity studies were in sort of mid-2020 up to sort of 2022, where they were looking at sporting environments such as exercising, running and horse riding, where inter-abdominal pressure change is a little bit higher. And the ongoing studies are the 10,000 and 11,000, where data collection is still ongoing. Publication-wise, so we have 2 publications with Efemia which have been cited. So the main study, which allowed for the product to gain a CE mark, is an open randomized control center clinical investigation with an intravaginal device for stress urinary incontinence in comparison to utilizing the standard of care. And so this was a study in 2018, looking at 97 women over the age of 55. Now, the clinical study showed that Efemia blood support was safe and easy to use, and the median reduction in leakage during daily provocative testing. And that was testing where the patients had a full bladder, where they were coughing and they were sneezing and they were jumping, in comparison to a control group. The significant reduction in leakage was 77%. Now, one of the biggest figures is that 75% of women would recommend the product to a friend, which is fantastic. And 85% of patients found it incredibly easy to use. So the post-market studies. So user acceptance during high-impact sports is a great consideration. So when we look at the amount of patients that maybe present in physio clinics, the patients that maybe are struggling with certain leakage in certain situations. And one of the biggest factors is obviously weightlifting with that big inter-abdominal pressure change. So when they were looking at a small number of 13 individuals doing CrossFit, doing weightlifting, sorry, and they found that 100% of patients found that Efemia is effective at reducing urine leakage. And overall, 88% looking at all the studies found that reduction. Now, 4 out of 5 continue to use Efemia, and even more patients recommended Efemia to a friend. So a few comments that were noted from the market research and the clinical data itself. So it's nice to have feedback, and they found that from having more or less stopped riding horses, patients were able to get back to that sport and activity. Now, one of the comments to note is the comment in the top left-hand corner where the patient found it very easy and smooth, but it's taken a few times to find the right position when inserting it. Now, it's important to get it right for the maximum effect, and we completely understand this patient's needs. Now, it does take a little bit of time to get used to how the product works and the correct fitting. So as previously mentioned on a previous slide, we always recommend starting on the 30 mil and then working it up to the biggest one if needs be. Most people will probably find that the middle size is absolutely fine, which is the 35. But it's nice to sort of mix and match depending on that sporting environment. Now, the important thing is it is very similar to getting used to using a tampon or a menstrual cup. It's that repetition which will help to get the product easier in use. But water-based lubricant is helpful, and also sort of utilize it in different environments. So what did Efemia learn over the years? So Efemia learned that many people leak. They don't often see themselves as incontinent and don't always seek professional care. But urinary leakage is hidden, and it's an extremely common problem that occurs in women after childbirth. Most women who have tested are satisfied with the product and find it incredibly comfortable that it does significantly reduce urinary leakage. It is incredibly good for exercise principles. So the environmental gain by utilizing Efemia. So when we look at the carbon footprint from cradle to grave, the production of one Efemia device equates to 0.2 kilos of CO2 emissions, whereas Efemia is changed 4 times a year. In comparison to that, for pads, pads you most probably would use individually about 1,460 pads. Replacing disposable pads with Efemia results in 98 times lower carbon footprint impact, really, which is minus 46 kilos. Now, the waste generation, both Efemia and hygiene pads, are mostly disposed in landfill. Efemia is incredibly small. Efemia is comprised of 100% inert silicon, and there's no plastic, while incontinence pads pollute the environment with microplastics and do take a long time to decompose. Replacing disposable pads with Efemia reduce household waste by around about 29 kilos per year. It is worth noting as well. So although we recommend utilizing Efemia and then replacing it every 3 months, if that patient is utilizing it purely just for that sporting environment or as and when they need to, they might only be utilizing it sort of twice a week. And that would also improve the longevity of the product, so they don't necessarily need to replace as often as recommended. So Efemia is available on GP prescription in the majority of places across the UK, Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales. So these prescription pads that we have on our website are a fantastic resource for having on the desk in clinics. So we always recommend patients get provided with 2 of these. So there's one for the patient to hand to their GP to obtain the product, and the other one goes directly to the pharmacy, just to give them a bit more guidance on how they order. So the products can be ordered directly via the pharmacy through us as a company, or they can be ordered through a wholesaler if needs be. But they have to go through the special division section, but it's important that they understand where to order from. Now, we have full stock of Efemia in the UK. We don't have any issues with supply. So if they are struggling to get hold of the product, it's always best for them to contact iMedicare directly, and our customer service team can help advise them on where they need to place the order to. Now, patients can order the product online, and that can be accessed through our website, mypelvichealth.co.uk. Efemia is available for a 30-day refund policy. So if the patient isn't happy with the product, they can happily return it back, and we can issue a full refund. And also, it can be split into three monthly payments via PayPal credit, which is a really important factor to tell patients, is if they can't physically afford the amount of money up front. Our sort of clinical resources on our website, on our media page, are a great resource. And so the Efemia Clinician Guide offers a really good comprehensive overview, and also has a clinical prescription pad on the top. Now, we also have this fantastic representation of the female anatomy on a poster. Now, the poster is great for having on the desk just to show how Efemia is inserted and where it does sit, with the handle sitting on the exterior. Our next webinar is with Claudia, who's a fantastic physio from Manchester Royal Infirmary. She is actually coming back from maternity. I believe it's her first day back next week. So hopefully we can all join for that, where she's going to talk about the menopause and also stress urinary incontinence. Thank you all for your time. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat below. I've just realized my camera's not turned on, so I apologize for that one. No problem, Jenny. I'll send you through some posters. They're a really good resource to have. At least then you can happily sort of point people in the right direction, how to fit it as well, which is good. Yeah, may have missed it. How much is for patients? So patients can privately purchase the product. So it works out sort of £69 for purchasing it privately. But what I can do is I'll sort of, our Ireland rep Lucas. So his email address is islandrep@imedicare.co.uk. So the cost for wholesale and retail. So for the NHS, so it's £59 for the starter kit on GP prescription, and then individual sizes are 49. So samples for clinics as well. If you do need a sample for a clinic, we can happily send that out to you. It's always nice to be able to show patients what the product is, and also to get them to feel the device as well, because everybody always comments on how soft Efemia is, and also how easy it is to apply and remove. Because you do have the handle on the exterior, it gives them that opportunity that it's more comfortable, and people don't get too flustered with having to remove it. So it'd be fantastic for you all to join the presentation next week. Sort of Claudia is a fantastic person, and she's got a really good insight into the pelvic floor, being a pelvic floor physio. Super. Well, thank you for your time, guys. Hope you have a nice afternoon. If you do have any questions, like I say, feel free to send me an email. It's just Elliot, ELLIOT, @imedicare.co.uk. Thank you.